All right, we're gonna get it started now. I want to welcome you all to the first CEDS meeting of the year on February 23rd. We're gonna get started with a round of introductions here. I'm thinking we probably have too many people to introduce everyone, but I'm gonna start with if there's any legislators or their staff in attendance, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Aubrey from Senator Peters' office. I think I know most everyone on the list here, but you'll hear from me briefly.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Tom McNamee with Senator Ed McBroom's office. I will reiterate what Audrey said and looking forward to hearing from her in a few minutes.
Great, thank you, Tom. Glad to have you. Is there anybody else? All right. Well, if there's anybody new to the CEDS in attendance, I'd also have you introduce yourselves too. I'm not sure if we have any.
Hey, Ryan. Keith Glendon just joined, so I'm not necessarily new, but I've been here before, but just joining a little bit late. So
excellent. Thank you. Glad to have you.
Well, just hopped on too.
Deb Brunel from UP Michigan Works. I haven't been to the CEDS yet, so I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Glad to have you.
Hey, everybody, it's Alex Kopsky from Accelerate UP on now. Good morning.
Welcome, Alex. Good morning. And I see we have Victoria George. She's new to the CEDS and the Schoolcraft Tourism and Commerce CEO. All right. So is there anybody else new to the group? If not, here's our committee makeup right here. If you could also, actually we'll take attendance and here just looking through the list, but I'm going to kick it over to Aubrey right now, and then she can share a little bit on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Aubrey.
Thanks, Ryan. Am I able to share here?
I believe you should be able to.
Sweet. Let me see if it works.
That's what I want done from last. If I can't get that done.
All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Amazing. Let me see if I can make it full screen for y'all. So I am Aubrey Moore. I'm the UP Regional Director for U.S. Senator Gary Peters. Let me go back to the first page.
Sorry, we have somebody with their microphone unmuted here. I believe that Victoria, you have your microphone unmuted.
Okay. Sorry, I had tried before to introduce myself and it wouldn't work, and then I was able. So
glad to have you. Thank you.
Let me find this again, and then I will. Shoot. I can. All right. Maybe I'll leave and come right back then.
No worries. No worries.
Right.
Yeah, so Ryan asked me to speak to you all about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is now called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, since it was a bill that became signed into law. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then just a tiny bit about the Inflation Reduction Act. That is some new legislation that was passed in the later part of last year. So we are still kind of trying to get our arms around everything that has to do with the IRA, which as a previous banker is really hard for me to call some legislation in IRA. But yeah, so let's jump right in to the bipartisan infrastructure law. I kind of broke down, I pulled together some different programs. The BIL is really comprehensive. There's a lot going on within it, but I pulled together some different components under 3 different categories that I thought the UP would be interested in, that I'm the most interested in as representing the UP for the senator's office. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about those. As we know, across the UP, broadband is something that we desperately need, in some areas struggle with. So I just wanted to take a brief moment here to talk about some of the dollars that are flowing down through the BIL into broadband. 3 of the programs I thought would be of interest are the Reconnect program, the Middle Mile Grants program, and the Affordable Connectivity program. The Reconnect is the Department of Ag program that provides grants and loans for projects in rural areas. We had a really big announcement earlier this month. I believe it was end of last week, actually on Thursday of last week, for Alpha Enterprises Limited, and they got just over $19 million to provide broadband for Mackinac and Chippewa counties for some communities there. I've been in touch with Angie MacArthur at the ISD over there, trying to get an answer from USDA on what specifically Alpha Enterprises Limited will serve as far as communities, because they didn't get more granular than the county level at that point. So I'm waiting on an answer for that. As soon as I know, if anyone has any interest in knowing about that, I'll let you guys all know. So we already went through a round of funding for that. All of these programs have multiple years of funding available. So the Reconnect will have more funding available in 2023. And some eligible applicants are things like corporations, LLCs, LLPs, co-ops, those kind of things. Also state and local governments, agencies, a lot of people are eligible to apply for funding through the Reconnect program. Then the Middle Mile Grants program is a Department of Commerce program that provides grants for construction, improvement, or acquisition of middle mile broadband infrastructure. And again, this one has kind of a wide range of people that are eligible through states, tribal governments, technology companies, utilities, co-ops, public utilities, telecommunication companies, et cetera, et cetera. Nonprofits also are eligible through the Middle Mile. So that one's a little bit different from the Reconnect in that nonprofits are eligible. And then I threw in the Affordable Connectivity program because I thought that might be of interest. For some people, that is one that I would tell your constituents about. If they call you and are like, I'm just really having problems affording like broadband or internet in my area. This is one through the FCC. It's actually like a direct benefit to families. So they can apply for this and they have to be 200% of the federal poverty rate, I believe. But they can get up to $30 per month towards their internet service, or if they are part of the tribe or on tribal lands, they can get up to 75% per month. Or $75 per month. I apologize. So yeah, that one is not necessarily one that entities can apply for, but it might be a good thing for everyone to know about to be able to tell some of their people that maybe struggle in that sphere. So then I will move on to transportation. This is kind of like the bulk of the BIL is around infrastructure and transportation. Broadband is, of course, a component of infrastructure, but it's a little bit different infrastructure than what we drive on or that type of stuff. So I wanted to talk about a couple of different programs through the BIL that relate to transportation here. The first one is the RAISE grant, the Rebuilding America's Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. That is a program that we are now in the second year of in 2023. This is one that your road commissions specifically will be interested in. I sent out the notice of funding opportunity for the RAISE grant in January, I believe, to all of the UP county road commissions. And I also sent it out to my list of city managers. So please, 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 if you have city managers that say they haven't heard from me, let me know, because I just pull email addresses that I can find. And unfortunately, when those folks leave that job or an email changes, I don't always get that information because that information is not always updated online. And so I promise I don't spam people. I just send information on how to get federal money. So the RAISE grant is, we had it in 2022 as well, which is where the Sioux Ste. Marie Tribe of Chippewa Indians got almost $20 million through the RAISE grant to work on some projects over in the Eastern UP. So this program is a Department of Transportation program that provides funding for road, rail, transit, and other surface transportation that is of local or regional significance. So there is some criteria. The selection criteria includes safety, sustainability, equity, economic competitiveness, mobility, and community connectivity. So there, and I can send everyone links to all of these programs. They're all on different department websites, but I can send you all direct links to all of these things. I have a little sheet that I have kind of like a blurb about what each program is, what the eligibility is, and a link to where to find that. I'll send that out after I'm done speaking. The next one I want to talk about is the Clean Buses program. That one is kind of cool. It's for schools, and we had 3 UP schools take advantage of that for 2022. Bessemer and Lawrence both got just under $800,000 to purchase a new low emission school bus. And then the Ojibwe Charter School, which is over on the east end, got just under $400,000. This is a program through the EPA that provides funding to replace existing school buses for low emission or zero emission. And it can be school systems, state and local governments, contractors, for-profit, nonprofit. There's a bunch of different eligibility for that one. And then moving on to the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grants. That is kind of a large grouping of smaller grants. The one that I thought would be most applicable to the UP is the Rural Surface Transportation Grant, which will provide support for projects to improve and expand surface transportation in rural areas to increase connectivity, improve safety and reliability of the movement of people, freight, and generate regional economic growth and improve quality of life. So this one has a little bit more narrow of eligibility with state, regional transportation planning organizations, local governments, and tribal governments. So this one is really under government entities. So that one is coming. I think it's coming up soon here. As soon as I get like a notice of funding opportunity that application period is open, I will of course send that out to all the applicable folks. And then moving right along, the next one that I thought would be of interest, especially because across the UP, as we move into more electric vehicle kind of as a community, the UP is a place where we have electric vehicle charging stations, but we don't have a ton of them. You kind of have to plan out your route and make sure that you have a charge to get from place to place. So this one is through the Federal Highway Administration, through the Department of Transportation, and will fund development of publicly accessible electric vehicle charging infrastructure, as well as hydrogen, propane, and natural gas fueling infrastructure along designated alternative fuel corridors. This is one that is coming. It is one that we are waiting for more information on. The Federal Highway Administration is kind of like, their website just says more info soon. So we are monitoring for more guidance on that. And as soon as I get that, I will be sure to send that out, because I think that's really important for the UP as we look at, tourists coming in that already have electric vehicles as more electric vehicles come on the market, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that is all for transportation here. I will move on quickly to energy. I had pulled 3 different programs in under the category of energy that I thought would be interesting. The first one is brownfield remediation. This is through the EPA. And I just we haven't had anyone in the UP apply for these programs yet. So we haven't had anyone awarded these programs. So I just threw in the blurbs and the eligibility for each of these. The brownfield is of course through the EPA, and it provides grants and assistance for communities to clean up contaminated properties. And then you can see the eligibility there. That one is kind of more government related. The other one is energy efficiency and conservation block grants. This is also really government related. So your local governments, your counties, your cities, your townships, the tribes can look at these to help cut pollution. I know the city of Marquette has made a pledge to become carbon neutral by 2030, I believe it is. They could certainly look into this as a way to get federal funding to help get there. And then the last energy program that I wanted to talk about is the energy improvement in rural or remote areas. This one really speaks to the UP, as a lot of the areas in the UP have fewer than 10,000 inhabitants. So a lot of our communities would be eligible for this. It's a Department of Energy program that provides funding to rural areas to increase environmental protection from the impacts of energy use. So that one is also that one's a little bit more broad, broader than just local governments. Universities can apply. So our 3 major universities should definitely look at this, specifically Michigan Tech with some of the research they're doing in the energy sector. But yeah, so those are all the energy things that I wanted to talk about. Like I said, we haven't had anyone yet apply for these. So we don't have anyone that I can point to that was awarded any of these yet, but I would be happy to do that next year. So hopefully we get someone to apply here. And that kind of wraps up my bipartisan infrastructure law presentation part. And then I'll just talk a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act. Like I said, it passed just in 2022 at the end. And so there was a guidebook released by the White House just last month. It's quite long. I think it's 145 pages long. And it has all the different programs that are going to be kind of underneath the IRA, but it doesn't have really any information yet. So we are kind of just waiting for more information to be made available to us so that we can share it. So there will be more to come there. And I will just wrap up by saying we have a new position in the senator's office. It is a grants and procurement position. And so if anyone is really interested in taking advantage of some of these federal dollars and grant opportunities, et cetera, she would be certainly happy to speak with anyone and guide anyone that is looking to apply. She also manages a lot of our letters of support. If anyone ever applies for a grant through the federal government, the senator's office can write a letter of support as a component of your application. And those typically really play well in your application. So we're always happy to do that. But yeah, this is just kind of like a really broad overview. There are a ton of federal programs out there. A different one that I sent out that is not part of the Inflation Reduction Act or the bipartisan infrastructure law recently was for fire departments. That one is hopefully it just opened and closed in January. and hopefully we get some UP fire departments, some federal money to improve their services and equipment, etc. So yeah, with that, I will stop sharing and be happy to take any questions or try to take any questions. If I don't know the answer, I am happy to try and get the answer. But yeah, with that, who has some questions for me?
That's awesome. Thank you for cracking that open and giving it a summary for us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope it was somewhat digestible. The federal government has a lot of guidance, and it's not always easy to wade through. So I tried to make it as clear as mud. And then I saw a question from, I think Dev, was it? The fire department grant. It is the AFG program, and I am drawing a blank on what that acronym means right now. But that did close 2 weeks ago. So I sent that out in late December, and I think it closed beginning of February, but that's one that comes every year. And I send that out to all fire chiefs, usually all city managers, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, Ryan, for doing that. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
May also had a question here in the
Missed
chat.
it.
What is the contact information of this new wonderful person in the senator's office helping with grants?
Yeah, so it is Elise Lancaster, and I will pop her email address into the chat here for everyone. And yeah, and if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help, like, connect as well. I do represent the UP for the senator's office, but yeah, Elise is down in Lansing, and she does all our grant work, so I will put that information in the chat here. Anyone else? These are easy questions. I know the answer to all of these so far.
Well, I'll just say that I'm very excited, particularly for the broadband aspect of this. You know, it's there's a lot of coordination going on at the state and the federal level, and I feel like things are really starting to move for broadband. We've talked about it for probably the last decade or more, and now we're really starting to see federal funding coming to rural areas for it.
Yeah. So there was, I forgot to mention this at the top, but there were some federal dollars that already kind of flowed down from the federal government into the states. So the state of Michigan already has some money that came from the federal government to work in broadband. So these are programs that I talked about, the ones that, like, you can apply for through the federal government still, but there are, of course, other programs that I'm not as well versed in that are through the state of Michigan. And if anyone ever has any questions about what's coming, what's new with any of the bipartisan infrastructure law, build.gov has all of the updates on kind of how everything is laid out. But again, a little difficult to understand sometimes. So we're always happy to help with that.
Well, I'm gonna give about 15 minutes of silence if anybody wants to drop a question or ask one of Aubrey, and then we're gonna switch it over. Surely somebody has a question.
If not, if you think of something later, I'll also share my email address in the chat here, and feel free to send me any questions that might come up as you go.
That's perfect, Aubrey. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
really appreciate you being here, and congratulations to the Senator Gary Peters on the Appropriations Committee.
Yeah, so that's the biggest news so far this quarter out of our office is that Senator Peters was appointed to the Appropriations Committee, which is huge news for Michigan, huge news for the UP. It's the first time in several decades that a senator from Michigan has been on appropriations. So hopefully that means we can get some money for some projects in the UP. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate
Sounds
it.
good. Thank you. All right, switching over to, this is not it. Hold on one second. Okay, we're back. All right, so there, presentation mode. Getting into the 101 for our CEDS 2023-2026 project period. So QPAD just recently applied for another round of partnership planning, and this is a 3-year grant that allows us to have the CEDS committees develop the CEDS and provide technical assistance in developing these projects. We applied for that in January, and our program will likely start in April of this year. This is a grant for regions. So I have a map here showing all the economic development districts in the state that the EDA funds. The partnership planning grant, it helps us develop our CEDS, and the CEDS itself is a locally based, regionally driven strategy that involves input from the public, the private sector, and nonprofits. It's the blueprint for economic development and collaboration in the region. And feel free to stop me throughout the presentation if you have any questions here. The CEDS Strategy Committee, which I showed you a roster of it at the beginning. It's a list of our official members for the purposes of the program. Anyone is welcome to join these meetings and join in the conversation. It's not just the CEDS committee, but we only identify one person per organization as part of that official roster. And there's some basic requirements on minimum requirements of having a CEDS committee. So a community or a region needs to have representation from tribal government, the private sector, state and local, and other public officials, community leaders, representatives from workforce boards and institutions of higher education, and minority and labor groups. So I think, you know, the composition of our CEDS committee, I think, goes quite a bit beyond that, and is typically a larger CEDS committee than a typical one. And I know I just looked at the participant list and I saw Lee Shuri is here too. So he's our EDA Chicago region representative. And so Lee, if at any point you want to jump in and say anything as well, you're totally welcome to.
Thanks, Ryan. Will do.
Yep. We track attendance at these meetings, but there's no minimum requirement of attending. So for that reason, we track because we want to find out who's attending and invite them to be part of that official roster if they're really engaged in conversations and attending every meeting. So being on the committee, you vote on two things. We have the official project list that we have in the CEDS. We'll have the committee vote on that, I think, probably in October of this year, and then recommending the draft CEDS to the executive committee, and we'll probably do that in December of this year. if everything goes according to schedule. And we have meeting materials, the agendas and the presentations and recordings are all posted about a week after the meeting, and they're found here at this link. So the CEDS strategy itself, I think most of you were here 3 years ago when we developed this strategy and passed it. So we're starting in April 2023 and working on updating this document. It's going to start with a data presentation, just an update of all the information, and also the call for projects. The purpose of this strategy document is to bring together the public and private sector in the creation of an economic roadmap to diversify and strengthen the regional economy. It is developed with broad-based community participation and promotes integration with other regional and state plans. So we have some alignment between the MEDC strategic plan and a couple of other plans that we also cite in the CEDS. It establishes regional goals and objectives, and we have some action items as well as identify investment priorities and possible funding sources. So some of the required sections in the CEDS, it's a summary of economic development conditions. That's our data portion of the CEDS. And then it has a SWOT analysis. So that's another thing that we're going to be updating through this. Recently, we got funding from the CARES Act to develop regional economic resiliency strategies for the region, and we conducted some significant SWOT analyses in there, and I think that those will help to fill in some of that, so we don't have to go through the whole process again. Strategies and implementation plan. We have like I said, we have goals and objectives and implementation steps to follow that. We also have evaluation metrics. And recently, this is a new requirement of CEDS, there has to be an equity component and a resiliency component. So these are things that we'll also be including in it, and we'll touch on all of these subsequent CEDS meetings as we're developing the plan. So this year is really for updating that strategy, and then for the next 2 years or so we'll have a brand new updated strategy and then do it again in the next cycle. So this is sort of a new thing that I'm trying out here as a Google form of the CEDS project submission. So this has a lot of things that Lee would like to see and meeting with him and talking over projects. So I have a lot of key information in there. So the CEDS has a section on projects, and we divide those into priority responsive and steady state projects. So our priority responsive projects are those projects that are conceptualized and could have a substantial regional impact and relate to our CEDS goals. They're things that are specifically called out, projects that might happen. The steady state ones are not really conceptualized yet and not really specific to any location, but it relates to CEDS goals, and they're sort of like placeholders for things that could have a regional impact. I'm thinking like, infrastructure to enable telehealth and working distance learning and things like that. It's kind of broad buckets. So I mentioned we'll be having a call for projects announced each April, and then I'll have that open until October is my plan. A short project description is proposed for the CEDS when you're developing a project. And we'll discuss the collection of those projects later on. And then if we vote upon, or when we vote upon them, they'll be included in the CEDS and they can be referenced when you are applying for EDA funding. Being included in the CEDS is one essential factor for EDA investment funding. So if you're named in there, it's great. But it doesn't have to be specifically called out. Sometimes we get a project that did not make the call for projects window, but that's why we have these steady state projects there and our goals and objectives, because if that project relates to those well, then I think that could also be eligible. So I have this call for projects form. It's a draft right now. I'd encourage you to go and look at that and give me some feedback on that. If there's anything that you have questions about, I'd like to answer them. QPAD acts as the conduit from EDA to the region. So we have a few funding programs that I picked out here. They have more, which you can find on their website, but I just wanted to pick out economic adjustment and local technical assistance are the two programs that I think are most interesting to you all. The Chicago region, which we're a part of, that Lee represents, is annually allocated funding for these programs, and we share that among Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Ohio. The economic adjustment program is eligible activities are infrastructure improvement, including site acquisition, site preparation, construction, excuse me, and rehabilitation and equipping facilities. This is not an extensive list here. I'm sure there are more possibilities here. I'm just thinking about the UP labor market study that Invest UP and Michigan Works applied for, and that fell under economic adjustment assistance. The typical awards are sort of between 500,000 and 2.5 million. I think it can go higher or lower than that, but that's kind of the sweet spot for those. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lee. The federal cost share, I believe, is 50 to 80%, depending on a county's level of distress. And it's a rolling application period until funds are depleted. Assistance to coal communities is a set aside within that. And I believe that's a 80% cost share. And this is something that our region is eligible for. So I'd encourage you to look around in this, and I have the NOFO linked here, or the program page linked here. So I'd encourage you to go look at the NOFO if you're curious. Then on the local technical assistance, that includes things like feasibility studies, impact analyses, disaster resiliency. Sorry, I got to take a drink. And that typically awards 100,000 to 300,000 in that ballpark. And I believe that's a 50% federal cost share. Lee, did I get all that right?
Doing great, man.
Awesome. All right, so I developed a little bit of a flow chart here for a couple of the processes. First is the CEDS development process. So we're going to begin developing the 2024 CEDS in April here. And then we're going to also announce the call for projects. So entities can submit known projects during that window, which I think ends in October. We're going to review them in October with this committee and vote on the inclusion of those projects in the CEDS. Once we have a near final draft, we're going to put that out for public review and comment for a 30-day period. Then we're going to come back at the December meeting and vote on a recommendation of adoption to the QPAD Executive Committee. And then I'm thinking that the QPAD Executive Committee will either in January or February vote on final adoption of that document. And then the CEDS project application process. This is how it would work. If you're an entity, local government or a nonprofit, and you have a concept or a project, you would reach out to me. I'm kind of the first filter here, and we would discuss alignment with the CEDS and the project in general, what we need to consider. If you've submitted for this call for projects, you might not need to develop a white paper, but it's always kind of helpful to have a narrative. But we can refer to that pretty extensive call for projects form, which has a lot of questions that you can answer on it. I should also note there's a lot of starred and required items. You can say, I don't know at the moment on them, and that's just fine. Some of them, most of them have to be answered by the time that we're actually applying for the grant though. So once we have that white paper, we'll schedule a meeting with Lee to discuss, get his blessing to proceed. Lee provides a lot of input and considerations for moving forward on it, or if it's not a good project fit, he'll let us know about that too. So, and he can also let us know about the competitiveness of the project. And then we would go and submit the application through grants.gov. There's a number of forms that we have to fill out. You need to have all of the information, all of your login information, all of that stuff. So make sure to get a start early on. If we're fortunate, we might get a merits further consideration letter, which is a very good sign. You might have a few additional pieces of information you have to answer for EDA. But if you are able to complete that, you might see an award in your future. So that would be great. So let's get those EDA projects. Lee, is there anything you want to add to any of this? I'm at the end of my presentation.
No, I don't think so, Ryan. I apologize. I've been dealing with major ice storm down here, so I've been in and out, keep my generator running. I'm in Lower Peninsula, Michigan. But no, I think anytime you have a project that you might have an idea or a thought that might fit within the EDA funding framework, definitely reach out to Ryan. He'll connect with me and we'll talk about the projects together and we'll see if we can make it work. Just, the recap on the CEDS is a localized process, and the whole intent of the CEDS is not to drive projects for EDA. It's really to lay the foundation for economic growth within the region. So not all projects will be compatible with EDA funding, and that's okay. But there are a lot that will be. And I really want to stress what Ryan had mentioned previously about EDA having set aside dollars for coal impacted communities. We do have a significant amount of dollars available to help communities that are dealing with coal transition. Obviously that relates specifically into the Marquette area. And so we're looking to try to leverage some dollars up into your region to assist with any sort of diversification or resiliency work associated with the transition. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate that, Lee. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to the end of that. This is an update from the Broadband Task Force, which is a subcommittee that reports to the CEDS here. We had a meeting on last Friday, just ahead of the Lieutenant Governor's visit for the My Connected Future listening tour. And so we were discussing that upcoming meeting and what they're calling workshops in a box. That was, I have the schedule here of the UP dates that are coming up. There's one happening again on May 16th in Watersmeet, and May 17th here in Marquette at the Northern Michigan University or NMU Northern Center. And then not sure on the location for Sault Ste. Marie, but that's happening on the 18th. And they have Escanaba marked as to be determined, and they don't have a date for that yet. They only have things planned out through, I think, May. So what they want to understand at these meetings is how should the state be prioritizing the federal BEAD funding, that's the broadband infrastructure funding that's going to be coming. So if you'll recall, we previously discussed the FCC mapping and how those maps are being improved, and there's an opportunity for location challenges. I think there's been some not so great communication, and the deadline of when challenges can be submitted. They put it out there that in January there was a deadline for challenges, but those challenges are ongoing and they're still very important for determining locations that are eligible for this BEAD funding. The deadline that they previously stated was only for determining the state by state allocations of BEAD funding. So still very important to submit those availability challenges and location challenges. So they're also offering these opportunities called workshops in a box, which are much smaller versions of these My Connected Future tours. They give us the materials and we can go to a location which is not having a meeting. We can go to Iron Mountain or Munising or Menominee and host one of our own meetings there that are kind of similar, and then we submit the information to the My High office. So reach out to me if you'd like to have one of these kind of meetings in your community. And then just something, I don't have a slide for it, but I also wanted to mention to get QPAD with partners. Let's see, UP Healthcare Solutions applied or partnered with the Connected Nation to apply for a Michigan Health Endowment Fund grant for a making telehealth accessible in the Central UP study. So the deadline on that grant was today, and we'll find out eventually if we were successful in that. But I think we have a very good shot at finding out more about our access to telehealth in our community, and then maybe be able to apply for some implementation funding for that. And then lastly, FYIs, I just want to bring up this opportunity that's coming up next Monday. So register for this if you have the chance and are interested. I got the link right here. Funding for opportunities for UP manufacturers. And this is in partnership with MEDC, Invest UP, and UP Michigan Works, among others. And then I wanted to share a save the date. MISHDA is having a summit, regional housing kickoff event. That's going to be March 23rd at the Northern Center. So I know invitations are going to be sent out by MISHDA for this. So, but I just wanted to put it on your radar so you can hold that time. And then finally, I wanted to mention the UP Food Summit that's coming up, and that is in March 27th, and that is also at the Northern Center. So please register for that if you're interested in food systems and listen to our partners talk about their successes for the year. And that takes us to partner updates. And I'm interested in hearing about anybody else's things going on in the region or anything else you want to share, upcoming opportunities. Are there any ideas or anything anyone wants to share?
Hi, Ryan. This is Ed Legault. I have one that I could share. In Delta County, there was an announcement made the second week of February. We've been working kind of short fuse with American Queen Voyages, and we solidified an agreement with them that they will be utilizing Escanaba as a port of call during some of their voyages. I know when we first started meeting with them, we were thinking, maybe it's like 3 or 4 stops during the summer. Their tentative schedule is 26 stops in Escanaba. So certainly a big economic impact for the area. And their stops typically will be for a full day, and they'll start middle of May and run through the beginning of October. So a lot of work to be done yet on that, but exciting news for the area nonetheless. Thanks, Ryan.
That's great, Ed. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely opens up a lot of opportunities. Just imagining what that can do for the downtown too, if you can.
Yeah, we actually have some training that the chamber is partnering with the Downtown Development Authority in Escanaba of how to better position their businesses and opportunities to do that with the voyage.
Very cool. Are there any other questions?
Ed, I could email you, but you're here. So this is Trent Mellinger. Who would be a good contact for local businesses in Escanaba to get on the short list for the cruises?
I would say either Vicky Mishaw from the chamber, or if it's a business within downtown Escanaba, Craig Werpel in the DDA.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Donna mentioned that the value-added producer grant is now open. And applications are due by April 4th. She provided a link here in the chat, so if you can see that and are interested, please pursue that. Are there any others?
Yeah, hey, Ryan, it's Will Cronin, MSU Extension.
Hey, Will.
Hey, I just have a couple of real quick things about upcoming programs. So first thing is we have another session of Citizen Planner, which you may be familiar with. It's a program we use that helps communities better understand planning, zoning, land use issues. It's a 6-part program. This one is going to be in Houghton, which I realize is not exactly the scope of this call, but if you happen to be on the western end of Central UP or you know folks over here, just know that that's an opportunity that's out there. So I'm going to put that in the chat for our registration page for more information. And then the other thing is we are also bringing our facilitative leadership program to the Upper Peninsula. It'll be in Sault Ste. Marie in May. Here's info on the program in general. And this is basically a program that helps folks get better at running meetings and managing change processes in organizations. We have been trying to do this program in the UP since literally before the pandemic. We were going to do it in May of last year, but we had a little COVID outbreak and we had to cancel it. So this third time is the charm. So the registration page for that is also right here if you're interested, and if you please pass that on. This tends to be a very popular program. So we would love to get you in if you're interested, or if you know somebody that's interested. And of course, just always feel free to give me a call, send me an email. I'll put my contact info in the chat as well. Then I will yield my time to the chair. Thank you, Ryan.
Hey, thanks a lot, Will. These are great. I would also give my endorsement to the Citizen Planner program. I've seen so much growth from planning commissioners who take that program. They come in and sometimes they are brand new, green, and just you're kind of lost when you first start on a planning commission. But once they go through this program, there's just so much more confident in their decision making, and I think it's very important for all planning commissioners to really take this. So if there's anyone in your community that hasn't taken it, then I would say definitely encourage them to attend, and I'll be probably registering for the leadership one too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey Ryan, it's Phil. There was that webinar that's happening on Monday through the Manufacturing Growth Alliance and friends. There's a bunch of people on that. That is specific. Oh yeah, you got it right there.
Yep. Yeah, are you going to that, Phil?
I will be on that. There's the link to find out more on it.
Great.
One thing that in doing some of my work, I learned that the definition of manufacturer is actually pretty broad. So it applies to a lot of food businesses as well, and others. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Oh, and we can't forget UPETA tomorrow. It's a virtual event, so if it's too snowy, you can still attend it. So that's going on, and you can still register for it too. And Kathy dropped the link there in the chat.
Yeah, this is Kathy. You can go ahead and go to upeda.org. It's a virtual event, starts at 10, goes to around 1 to 2 o'clock. We're going to have different things on infrastructure. Enbridge is going to be there. And also the agenda is right there on the website too. And like I said, and we're also going to have some John Mahone from the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, and Gareth McKay and Ryan, I think you say it, LaRue from Michigan Infrastructure are going to be there. And then also some EV charging panel is going to be talking too about EV charging panels and businesses that have done it here in the UP and their success and things like that. So hopefully you can come.
Sounds like a great agenda, and I can't wait.
Hey Ryan, it's Alan.
Hey Alan.
So just I guess a quick good and not so good update. On the good side, we've added 5 positions in our business in the last 12 months. So things are kind of moving along nicely there. The other side of the coin, though, in terms of attracting people and other businesses to the region, housing is still an issue, right? Lack of housing just is very difficult. And strangely, the lack of restaurants is starting to creep into the conversation. More and more restaurants are shutting down. Certainly seasonally, some Munising would see that. We see that. I'm assuming Newberry might see some of that too, that seasonally you have some restaurants closed down because you don't have quite the tourism that we would have in our 100-day summer. So
Mhm.
couple of thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Um, they just are really struggling with trying to find the workforce to be able to keep their operations at the same levels. And yeah, the housing issue does not help with that at all. So hoping we can start making some progress on it. Are there any others?
Ryan, this is Deb. I thought I'd remind people that on March 22nd at Gwynn High School, we're having a Mind Trekkers event for 8th graders. And it's really important to get businesses at these events, businesses to connect with the youth, help give them some exposure to the opportunities that they have. It's a really, really fun event for the kids. And we just really need to start getting businesses more involved, with kids this age. So spread the word for businesses that are looking for new connections. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Deb. That's really important. I've heard great things about this Mind Trekkers program and very positive feedback about it.
Ryan, this is May. I have something really quick. I just want to share with the group that Partridge Creek Farm. Hi, everyone. First off, I'm May from Partridge Creek Farm. We are partnering with MSU and Marisa and have a really exciting Farm to School Institute. So this is going to be a training for teachers, school district leaders, principals, food service providers, farmers. And it's really a training on how to get more local food into our school systems, and also how to train teachers and school staff on how to do more hands-on experiential learning in outdoor spaces. So I'm going to put the training here. If you know anybody in your school district, it's open to the region. So if you know anybody, please share that opportunity. We're really excited to offer it for free this year. And travel and even sketches and some stipends for attending are available. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Yeah, one thing we learned from developing this food hub feasibility study that was just recently finished, it was that having the demand and the from institutions would really be helpful and being able to grow the UP food system. So I think schools are really key. If we can get more local food into schools and get more demand that way, then people can grow more, and that will, grow the whole system and really encourage more food system development in the region.
Yes, well said. Let's do it.
All right, any others?
Hey Ryan, it's Christopher real quick. A couple of updates from the LSCP. Number one, I'm going to drop a link in here. We have a job opening. So if you all know anyone who wants to break into economic development, this is their chance. It's an operations and marketing coordinator position. So mostly operations, which we're just looking for somebody who's great at organization and can make us way more efficient than we currently are. Really looking for that. We're hoping to fill that next couple of weeks. We also have our annual dinner next week. And of special interest to this group probably is that Bill Raymond is actually receiving our Distinguished Service Award winner for an individual this year. So we're really excited to celebrate Bill next week. So if you guys aren't planning to be there and you want to come support him, sign up, right? It could be a really cool time. It's our 25th anniversary too. So we'll have some special events going on and things like that. And then the third thing, in the next 2 weeks, you'll all see us formally launch our childcare pilot that we've been talking about for quite a while now. It's called Childcare Spark. It's basically an business incubator that'll help people start in-home childcare businesses. So it's our piece of the puzzle to helping address the childcare shortage. We're working on branding and everything, and it should be formally launched in about 2 weeks with applications opening sometime in March. So we're really excited about that. And the message continues to be that we're happy to share what we learned from that experience with anyone else who's interested in replicating the idea. But we're getting a lot of really positive feedback and support from both the private sector and the public sector on this idea. So we're really excited. So.
Awesome. Thank you for your leadership on that. And I hope you get a good candidate too.
I do too. Thanks.
Anybody else? Well, if not, I think that's a wrap. And thank you all for attending the meeting. Our next meeting is, I believe, April 27th, and it's going to be in Escanaba. So feel free to join us at that or tune in via Zoom. Thank you all, and hope you have a good day and stay safe.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care, everyone.
Ryan, thanks
Thank you,
everyone.
Ryan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.